Okay, in the previous video, I left you guys to try to build a robot, something like this. This is how mine came out. It's kind of insectoid bug looking, but I guess it'll do for now. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with being insectoid, but anyway, I'm going with it. So let's throw, this is nothing but the motorcycle pieces, right? It's just all of them thrown on here. And now let's try to make it into something that's a little bit more, um, has more realistic presence by, rendering some, trying to create some volume out of it. It looks, it still looks pretty flat. So let's get a background on there first. So what we could do is go down to our background layer, okay? And we can go to our adjustment layers down here. And if I were to do solid color, I can make a black background layer. Just that's easily fixed just by, you can mask it if you want to, and you can just click on this and, change the background color. Okay, if I go all the way to red, it's just turning gray. That's because I have this hue saturation. We did put that on in the last class, I think, right? The main purpose of that is to get rid of the colors on all the motorcycles and stuff. You can turn down that layer and you'll see all the motorcycle colors, which looks sort of cool, but, or actually if it's showing just a little bit, it might be kind of cool, but I don't know. It makes it look kind of chaotic. I'm going to just stick with it with totally desaturated. All right, let's make a more interesting background. If I go down here, I could, I'm just going to leave the black one here at the moment and put another one on top of it. And this one, I'm going to go to gradient. Okay. And again, it's the mask, the gradient, the background gradient, whatever color I make it, it's going to be grayscale because of that desaturating adjustment layer above it, but that's okay. I'm going to click on this thing, and actually, let's see what we have here. And again, Photoshop used to have a really short set of like 8 really useful ones. Let's see what's in basics. Just black and white. I'll start with this black and white one here. Oops. I'll double click on it to open up again. But if you click right on the gradient, okay, I want to make a few different rows, right? And I want it to be slanted, not just going straight up from the bottom. So I'm going to rotate it like that, kind of. And then if I click right on the gradient, I can click here, make that black, and move this. And then I'm going to click here. So I can get the look I want. I'll make it black on the very bottom. Just to make it so he's not like totally. Okay, whatever. If it looks good, it is good. All right, I'm just going to go with that for the moment. I just want something that's kind of a little more broken up than just the solid black. All right, so we've got to bring out the volumes on this thing somehow. And I already did this a little bit, so I'll just turn on the layers that I have. So I have a folder with all my body parts in it, right? Now I just select it. I had a bunch of parts making up the body. I just select them all and new group from layers, okay, to put them all in there, just to keep things organized because there's a lot of layers here. So here's my body and here's my head. Okay, if I turn that off. Okay, here's my body. So so I made a layer above the body folder and a transparent layer, just hit the new layer icon. I just started painting on it with transparent soft black to try to bring out, what's dark and what's light. And to try to make it, I tried to make it so his like pinchery mouth parts show a little bit more. Okay. And you have to kind of, I did this a few days ago. I'm looking at it now and don't really like it that much, but you have to, if we're bringing out the volumes, right, you have to figure where the light source is. And I'm just figuring the light source is in the upper left. So if his head's a sphere, it's not, but roughly speaking, this part up here is going to be in light and this part down here is going to be in shadow, right? So we can kind of paint it that way to bring out the volumes. So there's the body one, and I started doing one for the head too, okay? And the head's a little more effective. You can see it definitely is working, right? Because here it looks pretty flat, and here it's much more like, you can tell it goes in where his eye sockets are and stuff like that. So you can just kind of start, trying to do some shading. And so with this, I'm using the tablet, although when I was working on this last week, I did not. But, and let's see what my brush looks like. I'm in the regular paintbrush. I'm in the brush palette menu. I don't think I want to get pointy when I let up on the thing, so I'm turning off shape dynamics. But I'm going to turn on transfer with pen pressure because I want it to get softer when I let up. And I'm also going to turn my opacity down quite a lot because I like to just build it up slowly. so like, and don't be painting with white. Okay, so make sure you're on the right layer. So this is the head. We're going to make a layer for light stuff and a layer for dark stuff. I have two layers, one for the head and one for the body. Okay, so I'm just like painting black on top here to try to like maybe in the middle, I want it to be kind of dark and creepy looking. And yeah, and yeah. And you can be detailed with this, or I'm just doing it quick so the video doesn't take forever. But I do like to work with I have the opacity down like 27%. I like to work with it pretty low. All right, what's going on here? I don't know, maybe. All right. And we want to do highlights, right? We could do lighter shaded areas. And we can also do, bright, shiny, reflective highlights. Some parts of this are too busy. Like this is not, it's all design, I mean, like some parts here look pretty cool to me, but you can actually, paint some clarification on here. If I go here, I want this thing to look more, I can clear it up. And you can be quite detailed about it. Where was I even? Down here. So some of the parts that are too busy, I could go in and find simpler motorcycle parts or whatever, but maybe I can just sort everything out with the shading on it. So I'm going to. There was no real reason for me to have separate layers for the body and the head. I'm going to move this body one up to above the head. created a different look. Oh, right, because yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. So maybe there was a reason for it. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to label these. I'm going to call this one darken head. I'm going to call this one darken body. And above the darken head, I'm going to hit the new layer icon. I'm going to call this lighten head. Okay. And I don't know if I need this layer or not. I think that the bright highlights that are more hard edged might be all you need, but I'm going to do a little bit with this. So for this one, go back to my brush. I'm using white. I'm still going to keep it turned down. I'm going to make it somewhat bigger. And see, the thing is, when you use white like this, it lessens the contrast of it, you know? I mean, the black does that too, but it's not really so noticeable. So I'm just going to do that, like right here where I did this up here over all those parts. I don't know. Maybe it's okay. But you can always use your eraser too and turn my eraser down somewhat. I decided I don't want so much of that happening. But you know, if I want to get a little bit of a bright sheen on here, I would do, if I was going to spend more time on this, I would definitely do more detail work and go in here and actually say, okay, you know, how should this thing go? Maybe it should go, maybe there should be a piece highlight like this. Right. And then maybe if I go back to my darker one, I'm just working with black and white. I can hit X to switch to black. Yeah. Just because the motorcycle was a particular way doesn't mean mine has to be like that. But sometimes the messes are good, like this here, like kind of like near his mouth parts or whatever. You know, that looks cool like that, or his nose or whatever it is. Okay, I'm still on the darkened part. All right. So enough with that at the moment. But you know, do it as good as you can do it. But I'm gonna move on just to keep the video going. Let's see. So like some bright highlights. I think that's important. So I'm gonna hit the plus and highlights. All right. So I got white for this, and I'm gonna go into my brush palette menu. And for this one, I want it to get skinny on the edges. I want my brush tip shape to be hard, okay? Or maybe like a hair down from totally hard. And transfer, I'm going to turn that off, okay? So I'm on highlights, and I'm going to work with a more or less small piece. And, you know, let's see, where's a place that's facing the light? Like this part right here, right? If the light's in the upper left, and I'm going to turn up my opacity to, I'm not going to go to 100, but up to 90 or something like that. Oh yeah, baby. Okay, and you can get get yourself a little hard eraser too, and you know, if you want to clean up your edges or something like that. The highlights will make it seem super shiny. Okay, so I just did some here. Maybe, you know, you could also do something like, if you wanted those highlights to stand out more, I'm going to go back. I should set out a few different brushes. I was going to darken up a little bit more. I'm not going to do that right now. But the purpose of these things is to bring out the forms, right? So let's say I want this highlights. Just making sure you're on the right layer. Okay, crisp, hard-edged highlights means that the surface is very shiny, right? If the highlights are very diffuse and soft, that means it's more of a matte surface. It's, you know, see if we can get some that show a little bit more. Whoops. So it's having a bit of an effect, but as you go through, you know, as you go through and render the thing, it becomes more and more yours and less of whatever those motorcycles provided. And you can end up with the thing kind of pretty much, you know, your image. I mean, it is anyway, but it can be more of that. You could spend forever rendering details and figuring out, okay, well, what does this thing really look like here? You know, maybe it's what I'm doing right now should really be on the lighten layer, not the highlights, but whatever. And this really should be on a different layer, but it doesn't, as long as you're organized and you're not accidentally working on top of an incorrect layer, it's some of these details I'm doing are so little. When I zoom back out, I can't even see where they were exactly. But it's still fun. You just keep working on it until something that seems real comes out of it. Okay, so that's the main thing. Oh, and one other thing. When you get it like really close to being done, we could put some lights in there. Okay. Now these guys, this layer needs to be at the very top because you don't want it to be affected by anything else. I was fooling around here and I made like a gradient map, which gradient map is a kind of adjustment layer, and it renders the whole image on. So this funky looking purplish to greenish is the color of the whole layer. Okay, I'm going to turn that back off though. But there's another thing we can do that's cool too. If I go to my adjustment layers, where is this? Color lookup tables. Okay. I'm doing multiple asides. So if you go to a color lookup table and you go to the very first thing here, there's a bunch of stuff you could do that will, whoa, tint your whole image. That might be kind of cool looking. Futuristic bleak. Okay. And when you're trying to decide about one of these things, just turn it off and on and see if it's better. Okay. So like, because the straight grayscale, it's a little boring. It doesn't have to be. Okay. I'm starting to like this, but the going in there and really painting on it is the fun part. You know, it's kind of cool just throwing it all together. But when you go in and paint on it, then you start to bring out what's really interesting. So the color lookup table, that futuristic bleak, I find that kind of cool looking. Some of these are just like very subtle and they're made to just, not that one, represent some kind of film or something like that, okay? Which to me isn't super interesting, but, you know, futuristic bleak, horror blue, edgy amber, you know, maybe that's a little too much. And if it's too much, you can always turn it down too. Okay, so it's making less of an effect. Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of that on. Can't decide, but I want something more than just black and white. Anyway, what I was originally getting to before I got so sidetracked is I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this lights. Okay. Now, let's say this thing has little bright lights all over it. Where should they go? And they could be blue or green or, you know, red or whatever color you want them to be. I'm going to go with orange lights. So I'm getting my color here. All right. And so I have orange. I'm going to go to my paintbrush. I'm going to put it on 100%. And I'm going to keep it like this with transfer off and shape dynamics, so it's getting a little skinnier. And if you're just working with the mouse, it's really fine with this. You know, so I'm going to make little lights. Like I'm going to make little lights. There's one here, or not so little. And they probably would be more or less symmetrical. Where do lights go? You know, they could be like, they don't need to be just like dots. They could be like a line or something. I want to make it look too much like a nose or something there. Hmm. But if you, maybe they should just be dots. I don't know. It's whatever you like. And just put a few here and there. Definitely needs more in there. You can have a lot of lights on them. He's like a raver bot. So is that cool or not cool? Maybe the color's not right. If I decide I don't like the color, I can go image, adjustments, hue, saturation. Okay, I'm not using an adjustment layer because I'm only working on this one, and try different hues. Maybe red is good. I'm gonna go with red lights. All right, I'm gonna try something now. I don't know how this is gonna work. I'm gonna duplicate this layer and blur one, so it seems like there's a little bit of blur around it. Okay, so I'm taking that layer, lights, and I'm dragging it to the new layer icon. And I'm gonna go to the bottom one, and I'm gonna go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay. Where is it even? Okay, let's turn it up to a bunch of pixels. All right, does it show? Okay, so here here's the blur, right? Lights, blur. I think that's kind of cool. What if I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Got to fix that one. But okay, so there's a blurry thing that, it's just like a little bit of the shine from the light. I don't know, maybe it's kind of cool. I tried changing this to linear dodge, but I don't, or some brighten one, but I mostly drew the lights over the dark area, so it doesn't really have much of an effect anyway. If the lights were going over lightness and darkness, then it could have a little influence on it. But anyway, if I wanted more lights blur, I could just drag that to. Man, that's too much. It's just a subtle effect. Okay, so that looks kind of good. Yeah. So just, I think that covers all the techniques on this. Just do it until it's cool, till it's awesome. I'm starting to enjoy this, so I'm going to work on mine some more. So um, that's it.